And so I hung up the phone with him, and I just had an authentic conversation with God. And at this point, I'm at the top of this parking garage at Tulane, looking down Canal Street. You know, all the sites that I would see before with the beautiful palm trees, those were all ripped up and gone. And all you see is just destruction and water. And, you know, there's a lot there, right? People trying to float on wooden pieces to stay alive. They're trying to float their family to safety. And so I just had that moment speaking to God, like, God, what do you want me to do in this moment? And I felt like he told me to stay.
That's correct. This is the BeatiDudes, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be something that completely transforms the next some minutes of your life through authentic fraternity as we all chase that dream of growing closer to God and closer to heaven. And it's all about manhood. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
My name...
No, go for it.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name is Jeff Scheffelbein. I'm here with Paul Kolker.
Howdy.
And Nick Besner.
What's going on?
And we are the BeatiDudes, and we're having a great time here, but the Holy Spirit's in control of the show, and like no other time, like every other time, the Holy Spirit's in control again.
Like all the other times.
Thank you.
Like never before and like always.
It's a mystery.
That's exactly the...
There are some mysteries to this faith thing.
The mystery of podcast.
Yes.
We have a special guest today. His name is Pradeep Thoppil. How'd I do on that?
Fantastic.
What's your middle name?
Joseph.
Is it really?
Yes, it is.
Pradeep?
Nice.
Joseph?
Thoppil. I got you. I got you, Jeff.
With Joseph, you slow down.
Yeah. That's the softball for you, Jeff. Come on, swing. But it's my dad's middle name is Joseph, and my son's middle name is Joseph as well. So
Nice.
grateful to be in a Joseph
Where'd you come up with
sandwich.
that middle name?
Jesus.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Jesus. We have an awesome show planned for today because we know that you're a great man of faith and you have incredible stories to share. And you know what? We're going to go deep today. But before we go deep, we're going to start off with our TBD question of the day and see where it takes us. So this is a little bit different than normal.
Yeah.
Our TBD question of the day, you can play along at home, is just it's what did I say?
What has your attention?
What has your attention? I was going to say what's on your
This
mind.
question doesn't have your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, high five, guys.
Yeah. Awesome.
What has your attention this week is kind of the question.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, because our minds get occupied with stuff from time to time. So, yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Collectively.
Yeah, what has my attention this week? Total recut of the investment we're working on at work in a good way. Didn't know how it was going to go. Had a, kind of one of those like over the weekends of, well, it's either going to work or it's not going to work.
Those are the two options.
Those are the two options, yeah, as we've talked about a few times this week, Jeff.
We're good at business.
And it looks like it's going to work. And so it's kind of rearranging priorities, shifting gears, moving faster than we otherwise would have thought. And so, just occupying the brain.
Nick, you're brilliant. I'm just saying this. This is a guy who always keeps
thank
looking
you.
for answers. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Paul.
It is a good one because that's what's been occupying
Good answer. Correct.
my
You
attention.
are correct.
Yeah. It's got my attention.
So what's had my attention this week, and it's a blessing, but I booked a gig, and it's in L.A., and so I have
That's
to...
where actors go.
Correct. Yeah, so I'll be flying out there. It's actually pretty cool. I did a workshop in February with a casting director just to like learn stuff.
Just to workshop some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there goes the wind out of my sails. No. What has my attention this week is Jeff. No.
Keep
no,
going.
no,
Keep
yeah,
going.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember this workshop.
Yes,
I really
no,
do remember.
no, we talked about this. It was in February. It went really well. I got a redirect, which just means like you do your scene for the person who's running the workshop. In this case, it was a casting director for daytime television. He's a Emmy awarded. He's got like 12 Emmys, all of that kind of stuff. He liked what I did, but he gave me some corrections. And so it was like, I'd rather you do this. I'd rather you stay in the scene. Don't turn your back, that kind of stuff. And I thought I was making bold choices. He had a redirect for me, and I I did what he said, and it went really well. And then I sent a follow-up thank you note like a week later. And then out of the blue, a week and a half ago, my agent reaches out to me and said, he's offering you a part. It's a small part, but he's offering you a part on one of these soaps, one of the daytime
soaps.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Joey Tribbiani.
Dude, you're daytime TV gold now.
I guess we'll see. I mean, by the time this airs, I'll be able to actually know some stuff, but I can't say which one it is or any of that. Yeah.
Sure.
But
I might stop working
This
just
is
to
just-
watch some Paul.
Just blink twice. This is one of the days of our lives that we're living in.
I can neither confirm nor deny, although I can say it happens where Jeff spends a lot of time.
La
with
Familia, you're on Spanish TV?
Telemundo.
That's it. You nailed it. Muy bien, qué amable. Entonces, la biblioteca es verde.
It's pretty good voice there.
Awesome.
Man, there's so much occupying my mind that I'm having trouble picking something. So I think the thing that jumps out is donkeys.
Yeah. Yep. Naturally.
Yeah, we have 2 miniature donkeys in my house.
Oh, sweet.
They're new?
They're new. They're not a week old. They're a week old in my life.
Yeah.
Um,
That's how people say that.
One of them is named Daisy, and the other one's Tater Tot. Tater Tot's big and strong. They're miniature donkeys, so they're not that big, but they're hard to wrestle. No, it's like a lot of stuff that we've been pretty excited about, and it's making our kids like just get out and work and have fun.
Cool.
But the reason they're on my mind is I was like, yeah, we'll get donkeys. They'll run around. That's cool. I love them. I think they're so cool. Like,
That's awesome.
what are they up to? Can I go check on them? Like,
Can I ride on them?
Just
a little
looking
bit?
for
Yeah.
every excuse.
I FaceTime Amanda. Can you go show me the donkeys?
I saw something this week with a donkey in it, and it immediately made me think of you.
Sweet.
It was this guy like, hey, look at this cool like kind of niche business opportunity. Beers on a donkey at weddings.
Oh,
These people rent their donkeys out for like $500 an hour. Like it's like lawyer type rates
Wow.
to just walk around a wedding venue with a saddle full of beer. So
Please send me that.
yes, so
information.
so just so you know, Jeff, you're sitting on a gold mine right there, or 2 of them,
2 of them.
4 of them soon, right? You're getting
Yeah,
more?
I'm
You're getting
trying to
more?
get more. Yeah.
Where does one purchase donkeys in the DFW area?
Well, oddly enough, when we were in Cleburne, Texas, I talked to this one guy, and he followed up with me. We were just hanging out, being cool, and I was like, "Do you know anybody with miniature donkeys?" That was my text message. Yes, I do. These people. So that's who I bought our miniature donkeys.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah, just ask.
Ask and you shall receive.
A donkey.
A donkey.
That's it.
Pradeep, what's been occupying your mind this week?
Yes, same here, Jeff. A lot's been on my mind. Honestly, family first.
Yeah.
June is a neat month. You know it more so than most people, but transitioning from school and exams into summertime, I feel like
You've been doing it longer than me, so don't act like I know it more.
well. You have more kids, right? So you're getting to.
I just have a wider range of emotions in front of me.
But yeah, I mean, just
more
honestly,
concentrated.
with June, there's so much that happens leading up to it. I wanted June to be a little more manageable. So so just thinking of, as usual, Jude, Priya, Juby, finding that balance there. So that's
Juby's the wife, by the
Juby
way.
is the wife. Yes,
The other 2 are kids.
correct.
Yep.
Jude being our oldest, 12 years old, and Priya, 10-year-old. And so that's been a good occupation of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, of course, this podcast. I still remember when I got the text from you, Jeff. Hey, Pradeep, would you consider being on the BeatiDudes and, with Hurricane Katrina? And it's
Wow.
like I read it, and with all due love and respect, I kind of closed it because it is in many
Yeah.
ways like ripping off a Band-Aid. And so I've actually kept this box closed up until this moment, these last few weeks and months, or month and a half since you messaged. So grateful to be here. But yeah, that's been on my mind up until
Yeah.
this moment.
Well, you've just made it very obvious that we're going to have a little bit of a tough story. But I'm glad you pointed out to Brady that I'm the guy ripping off Band-Aids without permission. Like,
You're a brother. You have permission.
thanks,
always.
dude.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? I will say this. There's a lot of prayer, no joke, that goes into like which guest, and I think God's providence and all this. We're not a well-planned show, but the result ends up being very powerful. It's because whenever it's God's timing, and you saw the prep we do for the show, we try to remember how to say lucidprivateoffices.com because that's where we're doing this from. Nailed it.
Yep.
So that's the prep right there. Thanks, man. Fist bump.
Yeah.
To you too. And then, you got a big ring there, Pradeep.
I noticed that.
Wow.
You've seen it before.
Saint
at the
Yes, I
house.
have. Oh my goodness,
Saint
I did
Benedict
see it.
medal?
Yes, it is Benedict.
And the coincidence, may I jump in with, since you brought up the ring?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So my brother in Christ, Gopin, gave me this, and the only other time I've done a podcast was with him on a mental health podcast, and that was the first time I've kind of formally shared my Katrina story, and he gave me this ring. And so
That's cool.
it's just, I could not believe one of the last times that I saw him was in this building, and it's so cool how God works and how
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit works. And when I pulled up here, just plugged in the address, I sent him a video message, and he was just encouraging, and it's without coincidence that I'm here today. We're here together.
While we're doing the show, if we're all texting each other, it's because we're trying to figure out what jewelry to give you after our podcast. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no kidding. Earrings.
Do you have a car you can give to him?
I think so.
What a nice little nudge. Like the only other podcast.
He's already got it. He's already got a chain. He's already got a chain.
Dang.
I'm lucky if I play my cards right, I get socks right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
We'll
Well,
see.
You're probably keeping
We'll
up this
see.
good work.
We'll
We'll see
see.
how it goes. Okay, well, you've mentioned Katrina, one of the worst natural disasters in U.S. history. I think most of us remember this, but I'm blanking on the actual year.
2005. I think.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Where were you? Let's take us back to who you were leading up to that.
Okay. 2005. I was a relatively new pharmacist at that time in New Orleans, finished up at Xavier in New Orleans, or Xavier as we say it. And I was working at Tulane Medical Center right there in downtown New Orleans. And so the way that hurricane operations work at a hospital, you typically have a pre-hurricane team and a post-hurricane team because it's just how it goes. It can be sometimes a long event depending on what happens. So you have people usually post up before the storm to be in position.
Ready.
And then people that would be ready to come in to help relieve those people afterwards. And so at that time, 2005, I was, single, and I was placed on the post-Katrina team, and I volunteered to go in the pre-Hurricane Katrina team. And so that's kind of some of the visuals.
You weren't going to be in there originally. You volunteered to join the pre.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people could evacuate. There was something in my gut that told me that there was something different about the storm. Even when I saw it come across Florida, there was just something in my gut that told me there's something different about her. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you say you were a new pharmacist. Where were you from originally? Like, how did you become a pharmacist?
So I'm actually a second-generation pharmacist. My dad became a pharmacist.
They call them cradle pharmacists.
Cradle pharmacist. Yes, he started off, I think, as a botanist in Jamaica, but that's another story.
Aha.
Yeah, he was a biology teacher in Jamaica prior to coming here into the U.S. But
Nice.
yeah, I knew I wanted to be in medicine, and so I was going down the path of pre-med and decided to jump into pharmacy since I had enough prerequisites and thought that once I got my degree there, I could pursue an MD if I so chose. And I really was satisfied with, at that time, they had the doctorate program, which was more clinical, so I just enjoyed it, and it fit well.
Nice. Do I call you Dr. Pradeep?
Not necessary. That's not what I identify myself as. So
But you are wearing doctor outfit right now.
I am.
Scrubs.
Scrubs, pajamas.
Fatigues.
Well, it's funny you say that. This color scrubs is what I wore during Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
And so I wore this today for that exact reason.
Oh,
Wow.
like you get to pick what you wear to work today. Like what color?
Yes.
Kind of.
Kind of. Well, it's funny. I happened to bump into the CEO, and he saw my scrubs. He's like,
Did you tell him this is for Katrina? And he's like, what?
it's like, are these the issued
That was
scrubs?
20 years ago.
Don't worry, there's a podcast. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. But
I'll,
yeah,
I'll come back with jewelry.
You're so funny.
Maybe socks.
Maybe socks, gold laced. But yeah, I finished up at Xavier and was a new pharmacist, and it was my first year working at Tulane as a hospital pharmacist.
All right. So then take us through the event. People start evacuating the city or not? I mean, I don't even remember, what happened next?
Yeah. So I'm a weather nerd. First off, my brother used to just tease me because I would watch the Weather Channel on those loops on the every 10 minutes, and Hurricane Katrina really totally snuck up on me, who's a weather nerd that watches the Weather Channel for fun.
Yeah.
And so I want to point that out because hindsight, people are asking why about the evacuation portion. Like, hey, a hurricane's coming. Why didn't folks evacuate? Hurricane Katrina was really like a wolf in the night, where she just snuck up. She was supposed to hit Florida and kind of dogleg out, and that never happened. And I was starting my executive MBA program at the University of New Orleans. I was in class there, and then all of a sudden the double doors just burst open, and this big police officer comes in and says, a hurricane's coming for a direct impact, and we're evacuating campus. You guys need to close your books, pack up, and leave. And so that was the first time that I heard that the hurricane was coming, because going to bed Friday, it wasn't supposed to hit New Orleans.
Yeah. Do people panic in that class where they're used to being around hurricanes? Like, that sounds very dramatic. A door gets flung open and a police officer says, "Get out."
Yes, I have never thought about that. And it's funny how these events are, because you can just walk back into it.
Yeah.
And my memory is that people just went into triage mode. You're right. They are familiar with hurricanes, with the scenario, and I believe people just went into triage mode.
Yeah.
And so just knowing who they need to call, what they need to do to prepare. And that year in 2005, we've had several big hurricanes that year. So we had one a few weeks prior that was supposed to be the one, and it just missed us. And so it's an interesting time, because there could be a false sense of confidence at the same time.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I was in the energy world. We had to follow all those things because they would change energy prices, which is kind of it's a big deal, but at the same time, we're sitting around in Dallas, Fort Worth.
It's not life and death.
Changing anything for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so when that class gets canceled and everybody's supposed to go home, you go home? What do you do?
Yeah, I called my family, checked in with them to see what their plans are. My dad.
Were they local?
They are local. They were local, and they're in the West Bank in New Orleans. And so I checked in with my dad to see, hey, what's your situation? Because he's director of pharmacy at West Jefferson Medical Center, which is the largest hospital right on the other side of the Mississippi River.
Oh, wow.
And so from his hospital all the way down into the sticks, into the boonies, it's like the place to go for really good medical care, including oil rigs. People that would have situations, burns, they would get flown into West Jefferson Medical Center.
Okay.
And so I checked in with my dad. He was good. He was going to have my mom with him at the hospital, which is kind of protocol at that time if you're serving at the facility. And then I checked in with my hospital, spoke to my director, and then when he told me I was on the B team post-Katrina team, I asked to be on pre, just to allow folks to kind of go home.
Did you tell him because I'm pre-deep?
I didn't go there, Jeff. But
I always think if you could work your name into something with your boss, it just makes you memorable.
HR is really close by, so yeah, why not? But yeah, that took me down the path. The storm was so strong. They put me in a hotel right across the street from the hospital, because they knew that streets would shut down, bridges would shut down 24 hours, 36 hours prior to the storm. And I remember I kind of got situated in the hotel, didn't take a nap, and when it was time for my shift, just walking from that hotel to the hospital, I was struggling to walk on the street.
Just the winds?
Just from the winds, and the hurricane was at least 12 hours away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a big storm, for sure.
Do you wish, in hindsight, before you tell a story, that you would have taken a nap? I gotta believe what happens next is not a lot of sleep.
Yes, that is a good point. A nap would have been nice.
Pulling on that red thread. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I just like to play out all the things you could have done.
Yeah.
Let's Monday morning quarterback this.
This natural disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, you get to the hospital. I don't even know what the life of a pharmacist looks like in there, but what was different than before, and then how did it transpire?
So first off, there's a handoff. When you first walk into a pharmacy, especially one as large as Tulane, they were one of the bigger acuity facilities in the South. They would do cystic fibrosis, a lot of cancer therapies there, a lot of different things. So long story short, you kind of do a quick round in the hospital pharmacy when you walk in for handoff, depending on the area that you're working in. It was different walking in the pharmacy that day because you could just feel the tension when you walk in the room. Everyone's minds are on, what's next, where they need to go, what they need to prepare. So as I walked in, I just tried to get handoff as quickly as I could and get situated. And I remember just kind of plugging in the main pharmacy area where you receive phone calls, put in orders, talk to nurses, sometimes physicians. And I got situated, and then I remember just walking down the hallway when I had that moment just to kind of just breathe a little bit, get some space. And I remember walking down that hallway on the first floor, which the pharmacy is located right there on the first floor. And at that point, once I came in, they really locked the doors. It was kind of lock and shut down at that point. Mm-hmm. And I remember kind of going outside. I think it was CNN that was recording outside, and they had a trifold trying to get reception to be able to, get that last scene. And this young lady was speaking there. I was just like maybe 10, 15 feet behind. A manhole, I think from, the water starting to come in, just kind of blew up and just blew away. And their trifold, they couldn't hold it. And, it was just already just deteriorating. And the storm's like 12 hours, again, 10, 12 hours away.
Yeah, you think you should have enough time to be settling in.
That's right.
Okay, and then when you said kind of locking in, like people couldn't come to the hospital after this? It was you're in or you're out?
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Did people
right.
try to come to the hospital?
So it's like you're reading my mind, Jeff. Yes, yes. And there's this elderly lady that I can still picture that after they closed the doors, in those windows in that atrium area, I remember she walked up to that window and kind of put her hand there wanting to come in. And I had my hand there as well, but there was nothing I could do to let her in because at this point, you're either inside or you're out. And all I could do is do my role as best as I can. And if there's, eventually when they open up for triage, I could help in that way. But it was hard just watching her and not being able to help or take her in right before the storm, knowing what's about to happen.
Yeah. I don't think I've heard parts of your story. I've never heard that. Okay, so as we get closer and closer to the storm actually hitting shore, what starts to change in the actual hospital operations?
The team at Aquinas Wealth Advisors believes that good values and good returns are not mutually exclusive. Using a tech-smart and morally sound approach, they provide investment alternatives that align with Catholic teachings without sacrificing returns. These days, faith-driven investors are finding it hard to know where their money is going. They have no visibility into what their dollars are supporting, but there's a better way. Thanks to the Faith and Finance Score from Aquinas Wealth Advisors, you can look into your current holdings to see what you're supporting and make a switch to an advisor that aligns with your values and gives power to your voice. Check out AquinasWealth.com today.
Hey BeatiDudes, it's Jeff here. When Nick and I set out and we started this company, Undivided Life, we decided to not use traditional healthcare, but we went with Solidarity HealthShare because we thought it was an affordable and ethical alternative that matched the needs of our business and our growing families. Since then, my family put Solidarity to the test. We've had pregnancies, babies, emergency room visits, even a brain surgery for one of my children, and Solidarity has been an incredible partner and has also had the cost and the ethical approach that we love. Here's a link for you to go check it out. learnmore.solidarityhealthshare.org/BeatiDudes. This is your chance to be in solidarity with the Scheffelbein family.
Hi, it's Paul Kolker from the BeatiDudes here, and I just wanted to share with you guys that I also, outside of the show, perform improv comedy on a regular basis with a group called Divine Comedy. So what we do is we come up with everything on the spot, so whether you're looking for faith-filled, fun, family-friendly comedy for your youth night, or whether you're looking for clean comedy for your corporate event, Divine Comedy can perform for your group and even get you in on the action. So if you'd like to hire us to come out and perform for your next event, check out DivineComedyImprov.com. Divine Comedy, an inferno of fun.
So tension starts to rise, right? People are understandably anxious. Nurses are wanting to get their therapies, their drugs, their IV piggybacks situated. And so that's a lot of what was happening. People trying to get situated for their shifts and their patients. There was just a lot of, I feel like, maybe emotional management that was needed in that moment, as people were just understandably afraid on what's going to happen. And I remember I was just trying to just spread calm and peace in that moment, knowing what our country can do and has done. There was some massive international disasters the previous year where the U.S. is responding within 24 hours with aid. And so that's what I would tell folks. Guys, we're in the United States. We're going to get aid. We're going to get help. We just need to just survive this moment.
Yeah, get through this. And pharmacy, are you bottom floor, basement floor? Like, where are you at?
That's exactly, yep. And in New Orleans, because we're below sea level and we're in downtown, right across from Charity Hospital, 2 blocks from the Superdome. And so we are below sea level where we are. So the first floor probably could be a basement, but they call it the first floor. There is no true basement there. But it is the very bottom floor of the building.
Okay. When does this start to get hairy for you? You're the calm guy. I know you. You probably stay mostly calm through this story, but when does it start to change dramatically for you? I know you've just had this moment with this woman, but what starts to happen inside with patients, with drugs, with needs, with electricity, with anything? Like, how does that play out?
I overall, in a hospital, they are professionals, and everyone just executed on their job, and people just took care of their zone and got things done. And I had no concerns with that portion. I think they did great. Things really started to just, I guess reality started to sink in, because we had a cable television that was right there posted in the pharmacy area, which gave us some contact or communication to the outside world, because otherwise pharmacies are locked up pretty tight because of narcotics and everything else. We don't publicize where an inpatient pharmacy is for that reason. We're kind of hidden. And so I remember watching Channel 4. Sally Ann Roberts was on, and they were saying their last broadcast before they have to evacuate and leave the news station. And in that last broadcast, they just basically gave the last warnings. Hey, if you're watching this and you haven't evacuated, prepare yourself to see the worst. Prepare yourself to potentially lose your life. Keep an axe with you, because water will penetrate your home. You may have to try to axe your way out of the attic. And they ended with a prayer. And the first time and only time I've ever heard a news station reference God in that way and pray. And after that moment, it was like something you see in the movies. It just became like, the screen just went down to a line and then just came to that one dot, and then it was black screen. And I'm just staring at this black screen like, this just happened. And so it just kind of lets you know we're shifting gears. We're getting into, the center of this thing.
Okay. Water enter your hospital at all?
Yes. And so the next real moment for me was I was working the night shift. The first time this new pharmacist has ever worked the deep night overnight shift, and it happened to be when the hurricane was hitting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I get a phone call from the emergency room saying, hey, Pradeep, we are seeing something glistening down the street from the ER ambulance bay. It looks like it might be water that's coming towards us. Have you heard anything? I'm like, nope. I don't know what's going on, but, keep me posted. And then I get another phone call that, hey, it is water. It's coming up to the ambulance bay, coming up the ramp. And so I helped go down to that area. I could see the water. And at nighttime, it's like black glass, right? The water that came into downtown New Orleans was different. It was a slow creep that came in. And so I helped move one of their medication machines to an area that was just not by the door, hoping that it would be a little more safe. And then I came back to the pharmacy. I started just getting back to putting in orders, doing my task. And then I go into the back IV room where we make all the chemotherapy preparations and IV preparations. And I'm standing by the back door. And as I look, I start to see water just creeping in under this back door. And so that's when I knew the water has invaded the hospital, and it's rising.
Yeah.
And so I tried reaching out to my pharmacy director at that time. I found out, I didn't know he had sleep apnea, so he was on his machine, but he was out cold, so I couldn't get a hold of anyone. And it was just really me and the pharmacy and maybe a pharmacy technician or two. And so in that moment, I had to really make a decision.
You're the lead pharmacist of this thing at this moment.
Yes.
And
yes.
you're like 22, 3, 4 years old.
Exactly, yeah. 20, maybe 23 at
Yeah.
that time.
No big deal.
Yeah, you got this.
So what decisions did you make next? My goodness.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there's a lot there. First off, I was like, I have protein bars. Where are my protein bars? I'm trying to make
Let's
light
see.
here.
Can I knock out some push-ups before the flood gets on the ground here?
No,
Because I'm a
my
Superman.
my 50-pound dumbbells.
Your gym was
Hey,
close to
but
40.
hold on.
No.
I actually think getting protein bars before the flood comes sounds really good. I'd
No.
just stuff my pockets.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
have some food
Maybe
on
you
you.
should have.
I did, actually.
Okay.
It's interesting. I already had like a certain type of almost like nesting. I don't know why I call it nesting, but prior to the storm, I had my food and protein bars ready to go, but that's not what I went for. I just assessed the situation, recognized that all the power plugs are here, and we have high voltage plugs there because we have HEPA filtration. We have massive IV hoods.
Yeah.
We have massive freezers keeping medications frozen because that's how they need to be stored. And so I'm trying to judge at what point will the water hit the electricity plugs? Will I get electrocuted? What's going to happen? And then what medications do I need? And so I had to kind of go through my memory with orders that I've put in, orders that I've filled in the last couple of days, thinking through what type of patients we have, what type of medications they are on. I take the big garbage can that we have there that has a liner, I dump everything out, and I start picking out meds and start throwing medications in these massive garbage cans, just knowing I need to protect it, get it out the pharmacy and preserve it so we have something for the patients. Wow. Because the storm came so fast, it's not like situations, other hurricanes where you can evacuate people. We had some high acuity patients that still needed a lot of products.
When you're talking about major cold storage and certain ways that they have to be stored, that stuff you couldn't do anything with, right?
That's where knowledge can come in or be handy, because there are certain windows for like excursion temperatures, they call it, where you can take something out of the refrigerator. It may be good for 48 hours undiluted, another type of stability if diluted. So a lot of those medications I still took out the fridge and just kind of held on to, and I tried to separate them out with the different bins, but I was just filling up bins as best as I could in that moment.
So yeah, you're having to make a lot of high velocity decisions.
With life-altering
Yeah.
implications.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
For patients.
For patients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oof.
I mean, and you think about duress and exhaustion, and now you're making mathematical decisions on very complicated words. I'm just saying, like,
Oh, yeah.
what happens in a pharmacy, and okay, well,
Yeah.
glad they had you. Keep going. You fill up all these bins. For anybody who's watching this or listening and not seeing this on YouTube, you have biceps bigger than our bodies.
Yeah, so the protein bars were necessary at the time
Is it-
for lean bulk,
Then I picked up the entire pharmacy and I started up the stairs.
like Atlas, the mythical Atlas.
It's funny. We're recording this in June, right? We are entering hurricane season. And just a few years ago, it's interesting how rhythms of life works. I naturally start preparing myself for hurricane season even all these years later. Wow. And so if you happen to just track with me, I'll start getting a little more fit when it gets to summertime hurricane season. It's not beach body, it's hurricane body. So
Whole workout series I'd like to launch for you.
Yeah. Welcome to Hurricane 360.
Yeah.
No, sorry, is that too soon?
not at all. You're
Okay.
good.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we started filling these bins, and it's a race against time, right?
Yeah.
I at one point, I just decided to forget about the electricity, right? I just kept on doing. And so once I got enough bins filled up, and people started then coming into the pharmacy when they realized this is happening. And so wherever people were situated, they started coming, and I was telling them to just start dragging these bins up the stairwells to a higher ground. And so step by step, myself and a few other people would start pulling up these bins to a higher floor, to a second floor or third floor, to try to get those medications safe.
Okay, quick kind of mental question here, because I think a lot of people in this circumstance you're basically going through the stages of grief in about 0.5 seconds, right? Because you might want to be in denial of the circuit. Like some people just can't believe that this kind of stuff could actually unfold and be happening to them
that quickly.
that quickly,
especially.
right? Yeah, and then you're having to make these decisions. What was that like? Did a switch have to come on for you, like, or did it just kind of naturally happen?
Like fight or flight kick
yeah,
in.
yeah. How did that happen?
I think it was a fight or flight. It really is just triaging the situation, right? Just trying to make the next best choice and then utilizing the resources you have in front of you.
Yep.
I don't think it went internal too much, right? I think most hospital employees and healthcare providers are thinking about the patients first, right? And so that's where my mind stayed the whole time.
That's fair. Yeah, you're so used to having to make split decisions anyway. This was just a different version of that. Maybe
bit
a
accelerated.
more intense
Yeah,
version of that. Yeah.
It is. And it's wild because so much is happening in front of you. And so I remember as the water started rising, we're starting to, it's like you're sloughing through this water with the bins.
Yeah.
And then I'm seeing kind of down from the cafeteria, I'm seeing melons and all our food, our only food supply starting to float down the
Floating
hallway.
away.
No way.
And it's like you're watching a show in a show because you're doing.
That is like a movie.
And you're seeing all this happening. I'm watching the plugs, where the water is there. I'm, looking at the employees coming in, and it's just one decision at a time.
Fair. Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So you get these all up there. Did they all end up in some common room, or they're kind of all over on the second and third floor, and you got to figure out where the meds are in these giant bins?
So yes, I mean it's not. There was a team, of course, there that showed up, and once people started coming together, they all came together in the second floor area, which was by kind of a labor and delivery floor. It might have been second or third. I can't remember. There's a mezzanine floor there, so it kind of throws me off. But we wound up creating a makeshift pharmacy.
Kind of reordering it a little bit.
Exactly right.
Back
Dumping
out of the
everything out.
bins, yeah.
Yeah, creating areas, having some sort of organization, and we set up a pharmacy there.
Did that floor flood later?
It didn't,
Okay.
but we didn't know, right? There's so much
Sure.
we don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about how the patients and the doctor, like how does, I guess really the populace, right? Not the doctors, but maybe them. How did people start to shift and change as it got hairier and we started to realize that there's water all over the first floor and the food's gone and, you think probably still in your place of hope this is going to be a 24-hour ordeal. How did it start to shift inside the hospital now that it's coming to land?
Yes, and you know what, Jeff? I was just thinking, the flooding really occurred maybe 12 to 24 hours after the storm passed. And that's the
Okay.
crazy thing about it. During the storm, I remember being up on probably the 5th or 6th floor looking out at the hotel rooms and being with the patients, being with the nurses, and the storm was so intense that they couldn't stay in their rooms. The walls would breathe almost. It's hard to describe. Like the walls would just move and the glass would just shatter. And so they had to move all the patients at that time as the storm was coming aboard into the hallways. And even that didn't seem far away enough because you have the windows there on the outside of the main hospital and then windows inside that patient room. And the room was pressurized enough where it was still moving that hallway window as well.
No way.
It was wild.
The inside hallways were being impacted by that.
Absolutely. The whole building was breathing. The pressure is crazy. I mean, when I looked out the window, things aren't blowing sideways. They are coming down. It's like banging into the ground and then shooting straight back up because it has nowhere else to go. So I would see things tear off of buildings and hit the ground and then just shoot straight back up in the air because it's that much pressure coming from the storm.
Yeah, I think people that have never experienced this, I just think of wind, like lots
Right.
of wind.
Right.
Pressure is very different than wind.
That's right.
Put them together, it's a hurricane.
Hurricane.
We
There
could-
she blows.
Come here for your meteorology lesson.
That's it.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Well, this is now we're going to open up the kimono a little bit here. Is that an okay thing to say?
It's good.
It's, what were some of the experiences, and go on either side of this one, that either were really difficult to see, experience, witness, like something that, would stand out, and or, I'm giving you a lot of optionality here. Moments of like inspiration, like seeing like the hero story that you would have never been able to write because it's a person, a patient, a stranger that does something in there. And feel free to do A, B, or C. C is everything. C is tell us both.
Okay. Some moments that jump out to me is, there was so much uncertainty in that moment. Again, it's easy to look back at these situations and say, why didn't you? But in the moment, it was amazing to me at how there wasn't more help coming in. I continued to try to stay positive through it, but they would have Coast Guard helicopters posted in all these in different areas that were there that just never got the green light to start rescuing people. And so there was that moment where we were trying to start evacuating patients, kind of moving them out the hospital to a more secure zone, and help was just slow to be mobilized. And so that's one thing that jumped out to me. Also, I had definitely a God moment. It's that moment where that you just surrender to God and just wait and know that He's going to give you a prompting. And so it was after that first day when the makeshift pharmacy was situated, and things were semi-stabilized. The water wasn't rising anymore at that point. And I go to the top of the garage, and I have my little Motorola flip phone that had just a little bit of battery life left. And I open the phone, and I call my dad to make sure that he's okay, that my mom's okay. My brother wasn't in the city at that time. He was doing his residency or his internships in New York for medicine. So my immediate family was okay, and that was the first call that I made. And I had to make a decision at that point. Do I walk down and try to leave the hospital and walk through the water and up an on-ramp and across the bridge, the West Bank Bridge, to make it to my parents? Or do I stay here and continue to see how things unfold and help? And so from speaking to my dad was saying, Pradeep, why don't you just go ahead and try to just cross the river and come to the West Bank, and I'll try to get someone to pick you up or find a way to get you secured. And so I hung up the phone with him, and I just had an authentic conversation with God. And at this point, I'm at the top of this parking garage at Tulane, looking down Canal Street. All the sites that I would see before with the beautiful palm trees, those were all ripped up and gone, and all you see is just destruction and water. And there's a lot there, right? People trying to float on wooden pieces to stay alive. They're trying to float their family to safety. And so I just had that moment speaking to God, like, God, what do you want me to do in this moment? And I felt like He told me to stay. And so I stayed. And I'm really grateful that I did. Thank God my mom and dad were okay through that situation. They have stories of their own. But I stayed, and over the next 5 to 6 days, I was one of maybe, we had a group of 4 or 5 people that transported patients. Most everyone else, they were doing important things, but a lot of them were just almost paralyzed. And so, being in that situation where there is a lot of loss and a lot of hopelessness, it's interesting how society dissolves. Titles don't matter. Your degree doesn't matter. Your income doesn't matter. The paper money you have in your wallet does not have value, right? And so it's a different situation. But I say all that because me and a handful of folks started transporting patients one by one, starting with the NICU, starting with the pediatrics. Wow. And we started because there was no one else doing it. There was no one else there, right? And so we just started carrying the babies, carrying the incubators, and bringing them through the hallways and up through the stairs, because when you walk by the elevators, you can hear water just dripping through the elevators. You know that you don't want that door to open because it's just not going to be functional. And there was no electricity. It was pitch black, as dark as you can imagine inside those hospital walls, right? And so, but we would transport those, the children and then the other adults for days and days until we had all the patients kind of towards an area in a parking garage where they could be area evacuated.
You would take them to the parking garage.
Correct. We'd take them to to the parking garage, and then we would have someone with a truck or a vehicle that could drive them up. And that was eventually. Before that, we would have to carry them up the stairs in the parking garage.
In these hospital beds, in these incubators, those things are not small. Those things are not light.
Right. There was one child that I really remember. He was waiting for a heart transplant, and he was on this BiPAP machine that just kept him alive. That was his heart that would help him function. And so he was plugged into initially into a receptacle that had some power left, and we unplugged it knowing that we only had a small window of power left on that machine to get that child transported to a top floor and evacuated out before that heart pump runs out. And so I remember that situation, carrying him through the stairwells, and that was a heavy unit to move. And I remember just walking up the parking garage steps, and my feet were wet and slippery, and I was at the bottom trying to push up, and I was just thinking, God, please help this to work, because if I slipped or maybe someone else slipped, everyone was coming down all those flights of stairs. And so we made it to the top. We made it to the top of that parking garage, and thank goodness a helicopter came in ready to evacuate that child. And I remember just standing back, and we sent that one nurse. We had this one young lady that needed to stay with the baby, and we sent her and the child with that helicopter. And I remember someone took a picture of that, and that's in one of the books that HCA has published. But that was just one of many stories. Yeah.
And you're saying for days.
4 days, because the hospital just wasn't evacuated, right? So you couldn't.
How many days were you there?
6.5 days. 6.5 days. So, yeah, it was unbelievable. When we finally, the first few days, I would actually finish. And look, guys, I'm talking a lot about myself. Please don't. I mean this. There was a lot of people doing a ton of things there. I know I'm talking a lot about myself.
That's your story. That's
it's
your
my story.
perspective.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
on.
come off more than
Sure.
I am, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
No, but it's your firsthand account of
That's right.
seeing all of this
That's right.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, at nighttime, people started realizing, or just in general, where the pharmacy is. And we did have some narcotics because there were a lot of people suffering. And so after kind of working these, transporting patients during the day, it's funny, you would get a small little Hurricane lunch card where you had, I think, 2 times during the day where you could go to a special area where they would be able to open some of the canned food that wasn't ruined and be able to give you a couple of pieces of ravioli or something along those lines. And a lot of times, I couldn't make those little lunch breaks. But in the evenings, I would get to the pharmacy, and it would be like in that labor and delivery type area, and I would kind of watch point at the entranceway, and you would have random people that would come in looking for the pharmacy, trying to get drugs. So at nighttime, I'd kind of post up shop and take turns with people, just trying to keep watch over the pharmacy. But I did have a good night's sleep in a stirrup, I think is what you call it, like where you it's got a good for your back and some elevation there for your knees.
Leg support.
Leg support, yeah. So I did get some rest eventually,
That's
Jeff.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. After the couple raviolis, just lay on back a minute.
So good.
Anybody get violent?
No, there was an active shooter situation, which was never a thing in 2005, right? I never remember hearing what active shooter was about. And keep in mind, they declared martial law at that time in the United States, where there was the law of the land was the people that were armed in front of you. And so they basically came around, deputized the security guards there, and that was the law. And so the one situation that I remember was violent was that there was an active shooter, and they had all the employees, no matter where you were, go against the wall and just sit quietly and sit low and sit small. And we didn't know where the active shooter was. We were just being yelled at to just stay small and stay there. I remember, I was close to one of the outpatient pharmacies, so I kind of did a crawl low and was able to get into that outpatient pharmacy in that moment. But I don't know of any violence that happened from that active shooter situation. I think it was stabilized.
Did you let them know that you're not capable of being small?
Stay small. Haven't since I was 4.
I can't do this.
haven't stayed small since.
Y'all, when he showed up and he had to wait to come into the studio, he went downstairs and lifted weights in our office gym.
Got to stay big.
It's therapy. It's good.
No, it is.
It's hurricane season.
How
Hurricane
much
workout.
longer did you live in New Orleans? And I'm not trying to completely leave the scene here, but this is a very big. Like, did you go back to work after your day off? Like, what? How do you? What happens after 6.5 days? This sounds like
pay good overtime.
yeah.
Yeah, you kind of fall off the grid for a moment and you have to get back on, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, and if you don't mind, Jeff, I'll take one step back
Please
and then
do.
come back to that
Yeah.
moment. That final day when we were able to get evacuated because we were able to get all the patients out. We had a whole bunch of employees, and keep in mind we didn't have a helipad at Tulane. Charity Hospital across the street they did, but we didn't have a helipad. So helicopters would have to. They couldn't fully land on this parking garage because they didn't know if it would collapse. So they had blades spinning on the birds when it would come there to pick up patients, and they were able to secure a Chinook, the double-bladed
yeah.
military helicopter, to help get these last bunches of employees out. And so I remember being one of the last people getting onto that helicopter, and just being in that open flap. I mean, it was first off the heat off that helicopter is unreal.
Really?
It is unreal. Yeah, walking through that to get on. But I remember being there close to the open door, open flap towards the back, and that's the first time I could see anything outside of the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized how big all this was.
Yeah.
And I could see the flooded streets and all the issues, and they eventually dropped us off at the airport, MSY, New Orleans Armstrong Airport. You waited, again, unknown, you waited for a bus to transport you. You didn't know where you were going. And at that point, my parents didn't know if I was dead or alive.
Yeah.
My last phone call out was like maybe day 3. And my mom, of course, was just panicking, not knowing, because my dad thought that I crossed the bridge, right? They thought that I crossed and that I was trying to make it to them. And all you would see on the news was the stories of the issues and the police turning you around, not letting people cross from New Orleans into the West Bank. And so they didn't know what to expect with me, if I was dead or alive. But eventually I was able to get on a bus, was bused to Alexandria. You were kind of lined up like you were herded, basically, given just scrubs, bar of soap, antibiotics. You had to throw away your belongings. You had to scrub it, kind of take the medication, throw away your stuff, and put on clean pairs of scrubs. And then you could leave the hospital. And I remember getting my first fresh meal at a kind of a center, kind of holding area. And then I was able to call my parents to let them know I was okay. And so my brother was able to come down from New York because when he knew Hurricane Katrina was coming, being from the city, you kind of knew what to expect. So he started driving down to try to help. And when they found out I was in Alexandria, my family came from Houston and picked me up, brought me back to Houston. I took a few days rest, but there's so much there you can't even unpack. I couldn't sleep under a ceiling fan because it reminded me of being under helicopters, right? So there were so many things that it was just different coming out of that. But once I got maybe a week's rest, went back to New Orleans, my parents' house, it was functional, so we could live there. And so when they allowed people back into the city, a few weeks later, I went back into Tulane and I helped kind of gut the hospital out because they have all these medication machines, Pyxis machines, with medication that needs to be secured. And so I helped remove those medications with a team there and then transitioned to a smaller hospital there called Lakeside. And that's when I felt God kind of sending me the signal that, hey, I think it's time to make a move. And that's when I called around, and I called here locally to Las Colinas Medical Center of Las Colinas at that time and asked if they had a job opening, and they did. And then I eventually transferred here in 2005.
Man, this is intense.
Yeah.
I remember I was a sophomore, junior in high school, and Lindsay, Texas, we were like people. Oh, you can live in our RV or camper. Like
Yeah, 'cause people-
hosting refugees from New
From
Orleans, like
Houston
yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
too, like 'cause
right.
they didn't know how far it was going to
Right.
spread.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, that's intense.
That's wild.
You ever go back to New Orleans after that?
Absolutely. My parents still live there.
Oh, sure.
And just the culture of the city, right? New Orleans folks are full of life, full of love, very committed. And so we go as often as we can, probably 3-4
Cool.
times a year.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, and I know you're a guy who helps out. I remember a priest friend of ours had maybe their parents' roof got messed up in a storm. And am I wrong about this? Didn't
That's
you jump
right.
in a truck and take some guys and go start doing repair work back down in Louisiana for them? I mean, I think you're one of these guys who just gives. It doesn't surprise me at all that you couldn't stop yourself from transporting patients for days and days. So, yeah, man, I can't even say.
It's like the highest stakes.
It's like, how do I thank-
moving?
Yeah. How do we thank everybody by thanking you? Because you're
Yeah.
right. A lot of people, where's the Purple Heart for,
Right.
the acts of service that were happening?
Oh yeah, all the unseen stuff that
Yeah.
was just had to happen. Yeah, the people were doing. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's powerful. And did you have a strong faith going into this? I mean, I know you're talking about where God's speaking to you and God telling you not to go on that bridge and go lift babies. Thanks be to God you did that. You were uniquely positioned to be the man to do a lot of that stuff. But how was your faith going into that whole deal and then since? And I know we're going to dive into this even more in the bonus.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my faith was whole, if you will. I would attend, celebrate Mass weekly. Grew up Catholic, remained Catholic through it all. But it's interesting how these situations and scenarios just allow you to grow, right? And so I look back, I'm grateful for those moments. But my faith was whole at that time. I can't say that I necessarily prayed daily or read the Bible daily in that season, but my faith was there.
Pradeep, I hope everybody listening to this just hears like the active service in this. And to your other point, not everybody's big and strong, so there's other ways that people were serving and sorting and playing their role to be there. I mean, the nurse that jumps in the helicopter, she's playing her role. She had to be there for that baby. So I don't know. What a great witness. And I don't know. You just keep this line of service going every time I see you. It's who you are. You can't help it.
It's a joy, right? You definitely, it's not cliche. You give more, you receive when you give, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I feel
Mhm.
every time.
It's awesome.
Well, Pradeep, I think we might let everybody just sit in this one.
Yeah.
And I hope that people will join us in just praying for anybody who's affected by natural disasters. Here's a real question. We just had the craziest wind come through North Texas. What does that do to you in a moment where they're calling it hurricane-like winds?
So I recognized it. I woke up that morning, and it's like it's something you recognize right away.
It's like a sense that you have.
It's a sense,
Mhm.
and I did have a handful of emotions from it. Some of it was just kind of frustration of the unknown. I think being caught off guard with something that big, and when I finally saw the radar with how that low pressure system just bloomed over us, it was hard for me to understand how something like that could sneak up here. I also remember the severe tornadoes that hit a few years ago, and there's something about weather, you feel the energy. And I remember when that was blowing through and GB was yelling at me, get back in the house, but I could just sense that there was just something going on. But it does bring me back, and it does make me aware of kind of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, with all these things, I wondered what would give healing. And I know my dad would say time and space in general gives healing, and that's absolutely right. But I wondered, like, some of these memories that I didn't think I was going to be impacted by it, guys. I went through it. It sounds, I guess like it sounds a lot, but I didn't think it would affect me. But sure enough, it did. And it took me a while. It took me years to realize that, even years within marriage, that I had to start recognizing the seasons when when August comes around, July comes around, that I have to be aware that, hey, this is a thing. Even today, I was just confiding in a brother of Christ that, hey, keep me in prayer, because I know once I open this up,
Yeah.
I need to be aware to be extra patient with those that I love around me, the kids, Juby, I don't want to have any rawness inside me because I'm opening this box right now. And so over the years, I've learned awareness, but I realized that when I shared it with Gopin, and I believe as I share it here with brothers in Christ, that God will continue to bring healing into that story just from sharing it.
For you and for a lot of people, my friend.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. We'll call it at that. Thank you so much, Pradeep, for opening that up and for being willing to be a witness on this. And brother, all I can say is we love you, and we will.
See you in the Eucharist.
We'll see you there, Pradeep.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to join us at our undersized table, subscribe to the video version of the show on YouTube by typing @ that's the symbol @, so shift and 2 on your keyboard, @ the _ BeatiDudes on YouTube. We'll see you there.